It has been incredibly infuriating and stressful these past 6 weeks as we in the UK and all over the world try to deal with the lockdown measures that have been put in place to protect us from the current pandemic. We have had to give up a lot of our daily routines, our normal habits, literally overnight, just in the hopes that we might prevent the spread of this very contagious disease. Governments, especially the British government, have enacted temporary laws in order to regulate how the people ought to conduct themselves during this pandemic. And these laws are, for want of a better word, vague. Intentional or not, they are. And this in turn has made the police very eager to police them in the most authoritarian degree. This video isn't just about the police, but you have all seen the news stories and videos of people being asked to leave public areas because of social distancing, because we can't have crowds, even if they are at the regulated 2 meters apart from each other in a big park. We can't have people visiting vulnerable family members to deliver essentials and to collect stuff from them. We can't make noise lest we get mistaken for having people in the house and get our doors kicked in by the law. However, it seems that it is one set of rules for all of us normal people trying to get by, and a whole other set of rules for others. Let us start with some of the most egregious examples that has been hitting the news recently. First, an MP by the name of Robert Jenrick. Jenrick is the Housing Minister and MP for Newark in Nottinghamshire. He was criticised in the press and online for making a trip to his parents' home in Shropshire after he was spotted at their home a month ago. He clarified on Twitter that he was simply delivering food and medication to his parents' home on their request. He was spotted by neighbours who reported him to The Guardian. Although they did confirm that he was indeed giving them supplies and did not enter the home, it did raise questions as to why he needed to, considering that according to members of his parents' community, they were already helping his parents. None of this is against the rules. The government guidelines state this clearly. As do the police guidelines, you can help vulnerable family members. This is considered essential travel. But is it really essential for Jenrick to go to his parents' home all the way in Shropshire, which is miles away from Newark, and his parents are already receiving help? If this is essential travel, and justifiable, why was a fellow Mancunian of mine threatened with arrest for helping his own vulnerable family members in Fallowfield? But this isn't the only questionable actions that Jenrick has been criticised for. He has also been criticised for moving to his second home, or as he says, his family home, in Herefordshire. When asked about moving into his house, which is a Grade 1 18th century manor, he claimed that this has always been considered his family home and they had recently moved back in. But apparently this is not listed on his website, where it states his family live just outside of Newark. And we already know he has property in London where he stays for Westminster and governmental duties. But apparently he was no longer needed after doing his tasks, so instead moved into this home rather than return to his constituency, which you would assume he would move to just to be close at hand. But apparently moving to secondary homes is not allowed due to the lockdown rules, and considering this isn't a home that he has officially said is his main residence until that controversy, I think one can argue that this is him breaching his own rules. Ironically, he was lecturing the country a few days before, telling us, if you are considering going out this weekend, please don't, unless it's for work, where you cannot work from home. Health reasons, food shopping for exercise, we need to stay at home to protect the NHS and save lives. One rule for me, another for thee. Our second example also comes from last month during one of the UK's 2 minutes of state worship. Clapping for the NHS. We have been told consistently not to gather in large groups, to only stick in pairs of 2, and stick to the 2 metre social distancing rule. However, it appears that during one particular round of applause for key workers, the police and NHS seem to forget that social distancing applied to them too. Videos of people congregating very close together on London Bridge in front of police and NHS workers applauding themselves, also congregating very close together, went viral. The rest of the public have been given very strict and, dare I say, moronic social distancing rules by law to prevent the spread of the pandemic. We have had to endure heavy policing, celebrity moralising by the likes of Piers Morgan, and public shaming by Karens and NPCs who aren't satisfied with your clapping or social distancing. Why is it that the police can abuse social distancing not only when doing their jobs, because a lot of them have not been seen wearing gloves and masks, but also during this clapping? Why weren't they making sure people were 2 metres apart? Likewise, why are the NHS doing this too? Any one of them could be carrying the pathogens which could only endanger their lives, and we have been lectured constantly by everyone that we need to protect the NHS and to make sure it's not inundated with patients. Yet here they are, breaking their own rules. Not only that, NHS staff and also ones in the US have been observed using PPE equipment in TikTok videos. There's meant to be a shortage of PPE in this country because of government ineptitude, the evil Tories not protecting them, yet here they are, wasting their precious resources making TikTok videos. Is there a shortage, or is there not? Also, where was the outrage by NHS staffers and supporters over the French stealing PPE that the government bought at the border? Or is it just easier to blame the government for all your ills? One rule for me, another for thee. Then there was the most recent case involving some actress called Sarah Parish. She was being interviewed on Good Morning Britain. Yes, that very same Good Morning Britain that is hosted by newly out of the closet Philip Schofield, where during the interview, Parish admitted to an awful truth. Due to the lockdown, she cannot appear with the hosts due to the virus, and thus was doing it via webcam. It turns out that Sarah Parish was in fact not communicating from her home as the audience and hosts were led to believe, but in fact admitted that she was conducting the interview from her neighbour's home because her internet was down. Whilst the host struggled to continue the interview as things turned awkward and the audience were having none of it, taking to Twitter to voice their anger that this woman can just break lockdown rules so brazenly and so openly and think nothing of it. So what happened next? How did Parish respond to the criticism she received? She doubled down, saying, "I seem to have caused a Twitter uproar. I was in my neighbour's annex doing the This Morning interview, not their house. They don't live in it. It's all lockdown safe. It's great that you're all taking lockdown seriously though. Stay safe." But she'd said that it was her neighbour's home that she was doing it from. Now it's an annex, a second home. So how did she get in if they aren't there currently, if they don't live in it? Surely they must have had to make contact with her in order to get her inside the house. It doesn't matter if it's a second property or not. She didn't have to use some neighbour's house in order to use Skype. She could have used her phone. She's an actress. I'm sure she has enough money to be able to afford a 4G connection for however long the interview lasted. As far as I'm aware, nothing has been done about Parish's break of lockdown by the police. They are too busy making TikToks and harassing the public to care. One rule for me, another for thee. And finally, the last example of brazen hypocrisy is quite possibly the biggest that I have seen in regards to this topic. This is Neil Ferguson. He is the medical expert whose predictive models were the basis for the government's plan to go into lockdown, as he was the one who told us that if we didn't go into lockdown and take certain procedures, the death rates would be higher. Well, it turns out that actually his model was wrong, and that despite all the measures taken, the death rate has been amongst the highest in the world. So much for lockdown. Meanwhile, countries like Sweden are doing much better than we are, and they haven't gone into lockdown. But of course, this isn't about his model, this is about his hypocrisy. Because it turns out old Neil Ferguson can't practice what he preaches, just like all the rest of our examples. During the lockdown, Mr. Ferguson broke it on several occasions in order to meet with the woman he was having an affair with. This sparked outrage, and Ferguson ended up resigning over this fiasco. Nobody cares that he's having an affair with another person. That is between him, the woman, and her partner, and maybe his partner if he has one. What we are angry about is that neither could keep their trousers on and broke lockdown to have sex with each other. We are angry because if any normal person was caught doing this, non-key workers especially, we would be arrested for breaking the law. Instead, he just has to resign from his job, and as far as I'm aware, yet again, no legal action will be taken against him. One rule for me, another for thee. How many times during the past 6 to 7 weeks have we been lectured by these people about staying indoors, washing our hands, observing social distancing, and how we're all in it together, and if we just keep doing this, we'll beat the virus. Instead, we have the police overzealously policing the lockdown rules, whilst they ignore people breaking it when it suits them. We have celebrities and politicians breaking it brazenly and openly, without remorse. And to top it off, the man who recommended it is also a hypocrite. But of course, despite all this, we still have to abide by these draconian rules. We still have to social distance and not socialise properly. We have to take wage cuts or lose our jobs entirely, whilst these protected classes seem to just be able to do whatever they want. Not only that, the leftists among them have been virtue signalling about BAME people being overwhelmingly killed by the disease, blaming racism and trying to get the NHS to treat them as a privileged class over everyone else. Meanwhile, ignoring the fact that certain groups within that stupid category, I really don't like that term in case you didn't know guys, are breaking lockdown daily, doing whatever they want in large groups, and the authorities do nothing about it. Maybe if they looked after themselves and took necessary precautions, they wouldn't be dying. But anyway, that's really all I have to say about the matter. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share the video. If you're interested, donate to my subscribe star on Patreon, and until next time, I'll see you later.